Have you ever dreamed of the perfect cafe? Well, in GP Gottlieb's Whipped and Sipped series, you'll have the chance to experience one. Galit has interviewed over 100 authors on the podcast New Books in Literature, in addition to writing. Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews, and welcome to you, Galit.
Thank you, Sharon, for inviting me.
So glad to have you here. I'm just going to jump into Whipped and Sipped, and I read actually Battered, which was the first one, and then Charred, which is the most recent. And it takes place, Charred, in spring of 2020, which a lot of us remember. And so the pandemic was just taking hold. And I was wondering if writing this and kind of writing down those experiences, was that soothing for you, or were you getting traumatic flashbacks?
Well, it was during the events that all the parks and the lakefront and the bike paths, everything was closed off and we were forced to walk in the street, which is okay since there was hardly any traffic. But everything I saw was just so depressing, and there were no people outside, and I would watch families, an occasional family with children, and if you pass them, they go to the other side of the street. We were so afraid of each other. So I'd come home and start writing my thoughts about it.
So it was kind of a therapeutic sort of experience for you. Yeah, it was the, you don't go outside. It's like, but and just for those of you who haven't been lucky enough to read any of the Whipped and Sipped series, it does take place in Chicago. So lots of parks, lots of lake, lots of lots of beautiful outdoor spaces that were restricted at the time. And then
it takes place in my neighborhood where I live, in the Lakeview section, just the tip of Lincoln Park. And the trees were blooming, the flowers, it was spring, and it just felt sad.
Yeah, Chicago in springtime is so lovely. Yeah, and when you can't experience it. So you have the character of Ollie, who is very fun, and he had pandemic marketing for the cafe, including things like cookies against COVID. And I was wondering if you came up with all of these yourself, or were these some of the things you kind of saw around your neighborhood during the time?
I did not see a single cookie that was opposed to COVID. But I love baking, and I was thinking how fun that would be to do silly things, because you know how the shape of COVID with the little
yeah. Yeah, you could have all kinds of either 3D little things or just like frosting. Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, I think there needed to be more cookies during that entire experience. I think that would have made everything better.
I know I ate a lot of cookies, let's just say.
So the family and friends of the Whipped and Sipped Cafe deal with several issues and kind of hot button issues like homelessness and drug addiction. And if it's okay, can I ask you, do you have any personal experiences with these kinds of issues?
Absolutely. Not me, thank God, not my immediate family, but we absolutely know people whose family members ended up on the streets for one reason or another, or became addicted to something or other, and lost parts of their lives, sometimes lost their lives. Yeah. It's walking around the city, even, I mean, now today it's back to being a city. Just there's so many homeless people, but the police in Chicago cleared them all out, all the tents, all the homeless people. Why? Not to help well, maybe to help the homeless people too, but to keep them off the streets from spreading it. So they put them up in hotels and every – possible empty space, because remember, the hotels and motels were empty. Nobody was going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just that if they could find a solution, temporary solution, why can't they find a more permanent solution?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that happen with homeless is there's different types, there's different reasons, and some of it is the drug addiction or alcohol. Some of it is just mental illness, and some of it is just down on your luck, a couple of bad decisions and kablooey, everything goes sideways. And so there's never going to be just one solution. And yeah, it's really refreshing and beautiful to see the main character, her compassion with just all of these really hard, difficult issues. And so I kind of see that in you as well, just a compassionate person. So, all right. So Ruthie is the pastry chef at Whipped and Sipped, and she is vegan. And she won't allow, anything that's not vegetarian in the cafe at all. But of course, all of the pastries are vegan. So are you vegan?
I am not vegan. I was a failed vegan. Um, when I got cancer, I had blood tests constantly, and apparently there's the blood tells everything. So I could not get my hemoglobin count up. It's a boring story, but I was a wannabe. The reason why Ruthie Rosen, the pastry chef, is a vegan is she loves animals so much. I'm allergic to animals, so I don't have such fun. That's not my reasoning. I care about life, but Ruthie and my reason are similar, that we both keep kosher homes. And if Ruthie is going to work in a restaurant, she can't work with products that aren't kosher. She doesn't want to work with anything that's animal based in any way. But she's also a vegan. And so working as a vegan chef, there's never a problem with anything she makes in that place. And she's committed to it. And the interesting part for me was kind of having her influence Aileen, my protagonist, who is not vegetarian even, who goes home and makes chicken soup because her kids love it, right? So I have a feeling about talking about one's food preferences is one of the more boring subjects anyone could do. I'm writing an essay on this. It's called Everybody Gets One Food Craziness. Not if you're allergic, you get as many as you want. But, it's a little beyond normal in our society today, where people talk endlessly about what they eat and don't eat. Anyway.
Yeah. But Ruthie, what I like about Ruthie, that isn't always true of vegans, is that she's so kind about it. And I just love her character in general, because she has that, just if anybody says anything bad, she's like, well, look at it from this perspective. And she's just like this delightful little bundle of joy. So when somebody's that friendly about, no, you can't have eggs in your pastry, you're like, well, oh, okay, I'll try it. For me, love eggs. I've been a vegetarian for decades, but I really like eggs. I think you can do a lot with an egg. So, all right. So you do have all these vegan recipes in the book. So do you create those yourself? Do you adapt them from recipes you've already had?
Yes, I've been baking for many years, never professionally, but I told you personally that I, for fun, went to take baking classes at the French pastry school. I was never planning to be a professional or work in a restaurant, but I wanted to understand the science behind it. And once I learned how to do that, you can make really delicious things with butter and cream and eggs, right? So, but the challenge is to make delicious pastries and cakes. And everything without those ingredients. It's been a wonderful challenge. And also in my own family, there's somebody goes into anaphylactic shock eating nuts. So nuts are tricky. And a niece, as an adult, developed serious celiac kind of anti-gluten, where she will go to the hospital if she eats any. So everything's gluten free. And somebody in the family can't eat eggs. So when I bake every week, I want to make sure everybody can eat my food.
Yeah. So do you use your family as guinea pigs then as okay.
Absolutely.
And do you
tonight?
What's on the table for tonight?
Dessert. There's a sweet potato banana bread, gluten-free, vegan. So you can make a delicious banana bread with all the usual ingredients.
Oh yeah,
but sweet potatoes and add some sweetness, add some bulk. Better for people who don't love the taste of banana. It's an experiment. We'll see. And then I made a blackberry crisp. I'm big on crisps, and there's nothing that it's just gluten-free, and crisp is never requires eggs. So those are the two things for tonight. Every week I do something, a couple of things different.
Does your crisp when I do a crisp, I put butter in. So what do you do instead of butter? Do you do coconut?
I use mostly olive oil.
Oh, okay. Olive oil.
Coconut oil is delicious, but some people can taste the coconut in it. And
I always can. It's like, oh yeah, which is great. I love coconut, and I have a dairy-free gelato recipe that I really love that uses full fat coconut, but it's dairy-free. It's not vegan.
And then I have somebody in the family, when I use coconut oil or coconut milk, says like this: "Is there coconut in this?"
And that makes that less fun to cook. So when you are cooking this way, what non-vegan ingredient do you miss most?
This is just for baking. For cooking, since my husband, it's just the two of us now, unless we have people over or deliver food to family members. He really loves meat and chicken. And so I always make a quinoa dish for me. And I always have plenty of vegetables and there's salad. I'm big on dips. I make a lot of dips that have tons of vegetables in them, but then you can put them on other things. And one gets around. If I don't serve meat, and he'll cook sometimes too, but he wants it to be meat. So if I don't serve it for a couple of weeks and we go out to dinner, then he says, I gotta have something.
We're going to steak. Yeah, actually my husband's that way too. He does. I'm a vegetarian because I react poorly to meat. But he reacts poorly if he doesn't have it. So, I'm willing
to do what we got to do.
You do what you got to do. All right. So I kind of mentioned at the beginning of this that Whipped and Sipped is just this delightful cafe. Is it your dream cafe, or is there still something you would change about it to make it the place that you would hang out in all the time?
It's my dream imaginary cafe. I wrote somewhere that when I was going to cafes all the time, I met my editor every week when I first started writing and pulling together a book, and we would go to different cafes around the city, and there was something wrong with every one of them. But the one I love most in my neighborhood plays really bad music. Or then there's one who, that they don't have alternatives to milk. Come on. Or they charge an extra $1.
Wait.
After, like it's already expensive. Mm-hmm. So there was always something, or their pastries were just too plain and boring. And I wanted interesting and different, that's it.
And you've made it. It's fun.
I made it. It exists in real life. And I would never work in a cafe. Those people work so
Oh,
hard.
so hard. Yeah,
But I
and
wouldn't
actually
take
that's
it
one of
for
the things I
money.
appreciate about your series is sometimes you'll read something where it's like, oh, I, own a donut shop and they're there like 10 minutes a day. It's like, no, these people they are inside at 5 a.m. or 4:30 or 4 a.m. And yeah, your protagonist works really hard. All right, so we are getting close to the end of our time, and two things. What is next for you and the Whipped and Sipped series? And then off after that, where can our fans find you?
So I thought it was going to be just a trio of books, a trilogy, but then I found myself writing a 10,000 words for the next Whipped and Sipped mystery. I think it's going to be called Pounded, which has other connotations,
Well,
but
yeah,
the whole
well,
whipped and sipped,
everything in your titles has other connotations.
people raise their eyebrows at me. I'm like, hello, whipped cream, sipping tea. So pounded, yes, but like you pound certain things to get them an even, to schnitzel them or something. So and I think there's going to be a fifth one, which my husband wants me to call schnitzeled or gefiltered, which aren't real words. Just like to end on a silly note, but we'll see about that. Mostly I'm spending time now writing essays about everything under the sun. I post on medium.com, and then I also submit to journals, to actual, journals, because I have something to say about a lot of things, it turns out. And I love doing it. And if anybody's interested, my website is gpgottlieb.com, and it has recipes. And I've actually interviewed over 170 authors for the New Books Network. And my purview is literary fiction. My channel is New Books and Literary Fiction.
Awesome.
So I have a lot of fun doing that. But my passion is reading mysteries. So I do that as sorbet in between the literary fiction.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today and talking about all things cafe and vegan. It was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharon. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Bye-bye.